Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tacos Tuesday. We have lots of questions already, and we have our expert guest here, Destaney Wishon. Thanks so much for joining us, Destaney.
Happy to be here. Very excited. I mean, the chaos of the holidays, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. What better time to get all your questions in?
Yeah, exactly. I guess we should ask the audience then how everyone's Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and holiday season is going. So if you have anything to share, you can put that in the chat too.
Yes, to be very curious. I think on our end, almost across the board, we saw Amazon's extending this holiday period, taking some pressure off of their shipping for 2 days. So for the first time ever, if we're just comparing Black Friday to Black Friday year over year, this Black Friday was a little bit lower, but the overall holiday period was up. Like, I don't know if consumer sentiment around shopping is higher, but sales were almost incredible. And I would say our ROAS was pretty in line. We had one brand go from 200,000 to 4 million in sales month over month. Like, it's obviously a giftable item, but it was pretty crazy to see that. So it's been really strong. Now,
Wow, that's amazing.
didn't run deals whatsoever. You did nothing for lead in. Like, CPCs are up and your sales weren't that much stronger. But for the brands who leaned in, they did fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Was there a specific strategy you think that they changed? Because that's a pretty substantial jump.
They did a fantastic job, and that this is kind of the new topic I've been coining in my training is when you list on Amazon, you're just capturing the demand. Amazon's doing all the work. They're driving the people that are searching for your product. And you're just, you got a little bucket and you're capturing it.
Yeah.
But what they did incredible was they created their own demand. So they went off platform, they invested in TV and video, and they educated their customer base on why they need to buy their product. So when Black Friday, Cyber Monday came along and they typed in their search term, they stood out on the page because the customers were already familiar with their product.
Wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it was insane to watch.
I've been curious about the TV ads and how, how those are going for people. So sounds like you can do a really good job with them.
100%. We're seeing a lot of success. It's also just like rewiring your brain. I think a lot of brands are spoiled because sponsored products are so successful, but I'm like, of course they're successful. A customer's already planning on buying. You didn't do any work. You just bid on a keyword. Like, Amazon did the work of bringing people on the platform.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. So would you like to get on and start answering some of the questions from the audience?
Let's do it. I mean, typically these run over, so we might as well start strong.
Might as well, yeah. Okay, this is from Spencer, and he says, what is considered best practice for branded sponsored product campaigns? Do you make a separate campaign for each SKU, or do you make one campaign and put all of the SKUs in it?
It kind of depends. Your branded searches aren't always the same, right? If someone's typing in Coca-Cola Diet Coke versus regular Coca-Cola, you can change your strategy. So we segment based off search intents. We almost always separate branded versus non-branded. Like, that is table stakes. You have to separate branded versus non-branded campaigns. But when it comes to lining up your SKUs, we depend on search intent, but also from a reporting perspective, it's sometimes nice to break out into single SKU campaigns, because then you can look at your TACoS per brand and you can say, SKU A is doing really well. Maybe I should increase my branded search investment on this SKU and increase my budget on that campaign while pulling back on my branded investment for SKU number 2. Breaking out into single SKU campaigns as a whole just makes it really easy to control your budget distribution if you have good naming and good organized campaign structure.
All right, very good. Let's go to the next one. Daniel says, afternoon, is there I think it's morning for me, but afternoon probably for you guys. Is there a golden ratio of CTR to CVR for measuring effectiveness of ad campaigns?
I'm not going to give a golden ratio per se, because it's really dependent on category. Click-through rate's also really difficult because it depends on things like pricing and reviews. So your advertising is going to be influenced by that. And same for your conversion rate. But your conversion rate, you can figure out what your category is converting on really easy using tools in Atomic or using the search query performance report, and clearly see using brand metrics, hey, my category is converting at 20%. You should be converting better than category average. Like, that's kind of the standard. If you're going to increase your ad investment, you need to be converting better than category average. That being said, again, it's also dependent on search intent. Probiotics is going to be a lot more expensive than probiotics for kids back to school, right? So you
Mhm.
can't just blanket look at your conversion rate across the board. You have to understand intent.
Awesome. Okay. Let's go to Joshua. He says, if you came to Helium 10 from an agency and had hundreds of their old campaigns in your account,
Yeah.
what is the best practice? Should I delete all of the non-performing campaigns and start over? I am not sure how to proceed.
Great question. Like, no matter what software you're transitioning to or an agency you're transitioning to, we don't ever recommend just pausing everything and, hard stop. It's really bad for relevancy and it's difficult for the transition. What we do recommend doing is, pulling your search term report for the last 60 days, pull out all of your keywords that are successful and build them out into the new structure that you want to move forward with using the new software, and then slowly rolling those out at the same time. As your new campaigns pick up traction, you can slowly pause out your old campaigns that are maybe a bad structure, or maybe they're a weird single keyword structure that you don't want to move forward with. You slowly transition them over. Like, first thing, pull all your good keywords. Second thing, pause all your bad keywords. Third thing, slowly launch and transition your budgets over from old to new.
Alrighty. And someone said in regards to our question about Black Friday, said sales were strong, CPC was up over last year. So very good. Somebody else said ROAS was down. Let's go and get to a question. Okay. What are the best practices for 2025 for new product launches? What's changed? I think, I mean, I don't know if that's in regards to PPC, but that's what I would put it as.
Yeah, I think quite a few things have changed. In terms of product launches, I would say driving external traffic is still doing really, really well and something that I think needs to be leaned into. A lot of brands cannot afford the CPCs in the category on a product that has 0 reviews. So, any way you can use external traffic that's maybe a bit cheaper to get your reviews up before leaning really heavy into Amazon advertising is a little bit more profitable. I would also say we're seeing this transition to creative matters so much more. So making sure your, click-through rate and conversion rate's good with your main image, but on the Amazon advertising side, really focusing on your sponsored brands video, your headline search ads, anything that makes you stand out on the page. Because when you're launching, you don't stand out on the review perspective. So find unique ways to stand out within the search results.
All right. Next one. My product launched in October and I'm struggling to get sales. I've been using auto and manual campaigns, spending between 30 to 50 per day on a $20 product. I've launched the product in another territory where it's selling well, so feel confident with the product and listing. Any suggestions?
Yeah. So I would say the first thing is to look at the keywords and really make sure they're the right keywords. Type them into Amazon. Do you see similar products? Once you see similar products, are those products priced at the same as you, or are they cheaper than you? Do those products have a lot more reviews than you? Figure out the competitive advantage that they may have over you and improve your listing in that way. On the advertising side, it's really as simple as, again, looking at the keywords and trying to expand the keywords in which you have that competitive advantage, and then optimizing your bids to make sure you can be profitable. The biggest thing, though, I would say is understanding that competitive advantage. When you type in your main keyword, what do your competitors look like? What's the price? What's the reviews? Is the main image different?
Alrighty. And the next question is from an elite member of ours. Hi, Andrew. For SB product collection campaigns, we find basically all our sales come from top of search. Is that common? Also, is it worth spending time bidding on other placements for those campaigns?
Great question. In general, I would say it is common. If you think about how the search results are set up on desktop and mobile, what is the biggest ad on the page? It's the sponsored brand top of search ad. The headline ads, the sponsored brand ads on the product detail page are typically video. It's not typically product collection. It's sometimes store spotlight and video. The only other sponsored brands that show up on page 1 are way down in the middle of search, sometimes the bottom of search. So this is very typical, not surprising. You can bid on the other placements. It's not going to drive a huge difference. Just note the majority of your traffic and visibility comes from top of search because that's where all of the customers are clicking and viewing before they, scroll down the page.
All right. The next one is from Keith. He says, my BSR is improving and my PPC is converting. However, The organic ranking for my main keywords are not improving much. Any advice on how to improve rank?
Yeah, the two biggest factors that you can then break down is sales velocity or conversion rate. So again, figure out your category conversion rate. That's super easy with brand metrics, insights and planning, or Helium 10 Atomic. It's Amazon given data. It's first party data. So look at brand metrics. If you're converting lower than your category, you're going to need to drive a lot more traffic to your category. So you're probably going to need to spend more in order to improve that organic rank. On the flip side, let's say that you are spending more than the category or driving more in the category, then it comes down to, again, like improving that conversion rate. It's traffic or conversion. Those are the two levers you really need to consider. So again, traffic, the easiest thing to do is spend more. It's not always the best answer. Or improve your listing and convert better. So that way you can easily spend a little bit more.
All right. We have another question from Andrew. Do you have any good advice on how to best use the new keyword group SP campaigns?
I'm not 100% sure what you're referencing. If you're talking about how it's now segmenting out, similar to a sponsored display ad, into the grouping segments, then we recommend running similar sponsored display where you don't build too many groups and try to overlap, because then your audience is going to get too big, similar to a category campaign. We recommend starting out with really small segments and then testing each, name them with the specific identifier in your campaign and just baby test each one.
Okay. The next one is, hello, 80 to 90% of my PPC campaigns coming from SPV. I see the CPC and SPV a lot lower than sponsored. I am thinking to double down on, I'm assuming that's sponsored brand video, and let the SP, the sponsored on the second plan. Would that be a good way of going?
I'm not going to say this is wrong, but this is really, really unusual to see, because on page 1, there's one sponsor brand video ad. So it's very limited in terms of advertising inventory. On page 1, there's 15 to 20 different sponsored product placements. So almost actually across the board, as an agency with over $100 million in spend, 70% of sales almost always come from sponsored products, because they have more real estate and inventory on the page than anything else. Very unusual. Also, sponsor brands video can get competitive really fast, because since there's only one placement on page 1, when everyone starts increasing bids for that placement, you can kind of lose control as CPCs go up, and you're going to lose a lot of your sales velocity. So I love sponsor brands video. It's a great format, but it's very, very limited in terms of advertising inventory, and you should be investing more in sponsored products. That is across the board the highest sales driving tactic, because there's so many more sponsored product placements than anything else.
All right. Keith says, or asks, what is the best way to check my conversion rate versus competitors on keywords?
I would say your search query performance report is probably like one of the easiest ways as a whole to look at search query performance. It's not specifically related to advertising. When you're specifically looking at advertising, you can't compare directly on the keyword level. You can look at it at the subcategory level, but you cannot see directly on the keyword level. You have to use SQP and then overlay it with the rest of your data.
How can you measure the effects of having a loss leader to help bring in additional traffic into your brand or variation listing?
Great question. I would probably dive into AMC for a lot of that. AMC is going to help you understand if someone clicks on one product, do they then end up buying another product? That's the easiest way. Without that, you could probably use, depending on where you're advertising, the sponsor product advertised product report to see if people are clicking on one and then buying another. That's a really easy way to justify. It's just limited to only your advertising data, where if you use the appropriate AMC report, then you're going to be able to see all of your organic data, and that's going to help you understand much better.
All right. My sponsor campaigns are doing well when I have a lower bid. Whenever I raise my bid to try and get more juice out of them, my budget gets blown and they become unprofitable. Do you know what I should do in order to make this work for me?
There's really no perfect answer here. I mean, this right here is the balance that is Amazon advertising. One of the things that we do to help this is we'll create 2 campaigns with the same keywords. One of our campaign will be lower bid, focused on profitability, and the other campaign will be higher bid with focus on sales. and we'll shift our budget back and forth. 70% of our budget is going to go to profitability, 30% of our budget is going to go to the high traffic. That way, we're not having to constantly fluctuate our bids. This kind of allows us to move the budget from both to, maximize profitability. And then when we're done with that, it's okay, we can shift more and turn on higher sales. It's just easier budget distribution. The other things that you could look at is, your bid management strategy. Maybe there's a better middle ground. Are you optimizing for placements? Are you moving broad phrase and exact? Sometimes your long tail keywords are going to be a little bit cheaper from a CPC perspective. So you're going to be able to drive more profitability from your long tail keywords. All of those additional measures are going to be hugely beneficial for this strategy.
Alrighty. The next question is, what's your take on DSP and data from AMC?
I'm going to start with data from AMC because it is now available for everyone. Brian Lee asked later on in the chat who can use AMC. Helium 10 has actually rolled it out. So you first need to request your instance being set up, but you do not need to run DSP ads to get access to AMC now. AMC is basically analytics and audience platform that just gives you a ton of insights into your Amazon advertising data. If you're not incredibly familiar with Amazon ads, it's going to be probably a shiny object syndrome, and I don't recommend you dive into it just yet. But if you understand sponsor brands and sponsored display, and you're running meta ads and understand audiences, you need to be investing and utilizing AMC. Now, the second part of this question is, what's my take on DSP? DSP has a bad reputation in the space because agencies and or Amazon managed services haven't been running it well, but DSP as a tool is incredible. It's one of the most powerful Amazon advertising tools out there, I would say, if used appropriately. You do need to be spending at least $10,000 on DSP a month for it to make sense, but DSP is incredibly, incredibly powerful for brands that are ready for it.
Alrighty. What do you recommend for ad campaigns when you have separate listing variations? Do you recommend to merge or manage in each campaign?
Again, it depends on search intent, in my opinion. If I have a black t-shirt versus a red t-shirt, and that's how they're variated, I like to separate out my campaigns so I can create search terms based off the variations. If my only variation difference is price, $20 variation, $10 variation, I may not segment them. I would typically put my lowest price first because that's going to have the highest click-through rate and then lead customers to my other variations. If it's flavor variations, weight variations, something with different search intent, I recommend segmenting campaigns so you can curate your keyword experience.
Alrighty. This is a follow-up on AMC. It looks like Andrew is having a hard time getting access. Any tips on how to get access to AMC? I've applied 10 times and never get a message back.
Yeah, one, shoot me a message. Two, Helium 10's working directly with Amazon on this. Amazon does have a turnaround time for it. So it's typically going to be a month, maybe 6 weeks, depending on how many people have applied. It also depends if you're working with a different SaaS provider or different agency, or if you have an Amazon advertising rep, they're going to be able to give you access as well. But if you need specifics on your situation, shoot us a message and we can help you get access to that immediately or within Amazon's turnaround times.
All right. How long should a non-performing but highly relevant keyword be bid on? A week, a month?
Good question. I would say the biggest thing is to define what is non-performing. If it's converting amazing, it's just too expensive. I sometimes keep them running because it's converting well, which means I'm going to slowly improve my organic rank on that term. If my ROAS or ACoS is terrible and I'm not converting well, the first question you need to ask yourself is, why is this relevant and customers are clicking but not buying? There's probably something wrong with your listing or you're not competitive again. So identify that and then maybe pause the keyword or lower the bid on your keyword. So it's not getting a ton of impressions, but it's running in the background and may still drive sales for a really low CPC, low spend.
Alrighty. What is a good way to determine keywords that you are ranking for, then comparing them to PPC campaigns to determine which keywords you may not be advertising for? Any quick way to do this?
Quick way is the fun part of this question. So the biggest thing I would say is to 100% 80-20 it. We kind of look at if we're ranked in the top 4, we're going to pull back on sponsored product spend and move budgets to our sponsored brands. So we're winning the top of search and showcasing our brand. That's our overall strategy. You can use TACoS correlation to do this. If you have a TACoS objective, you'll see that when you spend on a sponsored product ad that you're ranked for, your TACoS is going to increase because you're cannibalizing your organic sales. So you can almost use TACoS as a lever to push and pull. It's not a perfect solution, but it will help. The second thing to do would be to dive into, using Helium 10 and on a monthly, quarterly basis, pulling probably those terms that on average you're above number 4, number 8 on. And then we create segmented campaigns for ranking that we can turn on and off as needed. So I don't want to turn off that keyword as a whole. I just want to lower the bids. So I'll shift my budget from my ranking campaigns to my profitability campaigns. So I'm still running, but I'm not showing up in the top 4 sponsored ad placements.
Okay. Jason says, what is an optimal amount of keywords per exact campaign? I started with 15 or so, but as keyword harvesting creates new targets, the list has grown quite a bit. Break them into new campaigns question?
Absolutely. I personally don't love harvesting new keywords into an old campaign because it's going to change the performance of your old campaign, right? If you have 10 new keywords that aren't proven, then your overall campaign may start performing worse. So 15 is a great number. This is one of those fun, depending on what influencer you follow in the space, you're going to get a different number. It's really dependent on your budget. We've had brands that are spending $1 million a month and they're able to have 100 keywords in a campaign because their campaign's at $1,000 budget. So we could afford, from a budget perspective, to drive traffic to every keyword. If you don't have that budget and you're only at $100 a month or a day, then you're going to need a lot smaller group of keywords to make sure you're collecting data on those keywords. So start with 15, maybe go to 20 to 30, depending on how high you want your budget to be, but then always break them out into new campaigns past that point.
Alrighty.
I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm glad we're flowing here.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. I don't know if you need a breather there. It's like go, go, go. It's really good info. Let's see here. This is, can I have 2 sponsored auto campaigns running at one time? For example, I made one sponsored auto for products in one portfolio, and then during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or Prime Days, I made one more sponsored auto campaign with all the products from all portfolios. Same client.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to hurt anything. Most people break them out anyways by, close match, loose match, complement substitutes, because close and loose typically perform better and complements and substitutes don't, because they're typically kind of more of a product targeting, category targeting strategy. So that's completely fine. At the end of the day, your ads don't compete. No matter what you may think or what you may see in the space, Amazon prevents internal bid competition. So even if you had 2 keywords both bidding on the same term, they're not going to sit there and drive each other's CPCs up. So you're perfectly fine.
Alrighty. Gustavo asks, recently one of our top selling products became ineligible for serving ads. What is the best way to contact Amazon to make an ASIN eligible for ads again?
The first thing is, if you have an Amazon advertising rep assigned to your account, always reach out to them directly. If not, if you have a vendor manager, you can reach out to them. If you don't have an Amazon person associated to your account, then you're going to have to just open multiple cases. In the meantime, you can get around it by running sponsored brand ads to your store page. Your store page is a different review policy. So run your headline search ads to the store. It's not going to be near as much traffic, but it'll allow you to continue driving visibility until your eligibility is fixed.
Alrighty. Where can I find optimum category insights? I want to learn my product is performing against the category in general, or who is the leading seller in XYZ category, so that I can compare my sales KPI against them.
Yeah. If you're wanting for direct, detailed page views, conversion rate, subscribe and save, brand metrics, insights and planning tab in Ad Console and in Atomic is one of the best views for that. Amazon directly gives you that data. And I've kind of said it a few times because it's one of my favorite dashboards. If you don't know where that is, probably search our name somewhere, because we've talked about it so many times at this point in order how to find it. That's probably one of the best direct places in general. Carrie, do you want to talk about some of the other Helium 10 tools that are valuable outside of ads?
We have in terms of finding keywords, or
well, it's kind of talking about who is the best seller in each category. You can use so many tools outside of ads for that.
We have our X-ray extension. You can go and search the top keywords and it'll show you sales. We actually have it even down to the child ASIN level. So, if you wanted to know even what color or what variation is selling the best, you can actually look at that. We also have kind of a more advanced tool, Market Tracker 360. It's going to give you a really good overview of all of that. So I mean, those are the best tools, I think, for sales. I mean, we have a bunch of different ways to do it in our Insights dashboard as well. You can literally put your competitors in your dashboard and you can see their bestseller rank, if it's going up or down, if what their sales are. So there's a lot of different ways that you can monitor all that. So yeah. Let me see if I can find where I was.
Sorry.
Down, looking at the questions there. Okay, here we go. When I search for my main keyword, Valentine's Day cards, and I go to the filters, my brand is not showing up in the brand filter. How do I get my brand to show up in these filters?
I'm not 100% sure. I would assume it's your highest volume brands within a category, but I don't know if there's a way to hack that or if it's tied to your attributes. It's not my area of expertise. Sorry.
Yeah. I think it probably has to do with, the top brands in the category.
Maybe a good question to post in the group and see if anyone else is familiar.
How do I get to know the traffic source that leads to a sale if the source is not coming from PPC?
Not any great way to tell. I would say you can use Amazon attribution and, make sure you're tracking attribution if you're running external campaigns, but Amazon doesn't give us that information.
One way I know somebody was tracking it is they just kind of track their sessions and they're just seeing how much of a, if they're doing like outside with influencers, they see what their sessions are and they kind of see if they're kind of increasing traffic in general and they kind of just calculate it that way. It's kind of not exact, but that's potentially a good way to do it as well, as just to kind of see how that has increased. Are exact keywords generally expensive than broad? What, according to you, is the right mix of keywords, match type within a campaign, and how many should be?
This is a fun one. There's a ton of misconceptions around this, in my opinion. It just depends. Because it's an auction model. If someone is bidding more on their exact match term than they are their phrase match, then maybe your exact match keywords are more expensive because your competitor is bidding more. We test all 3 match types across the board. They all 3 run in a very similar ACoS or ROAS because we control the bids to what's converting best at that certain point in time. I think for us, phrase match is one of our highest selling match types right now. Because broad sometimes goes too broad and doesn't convert as well. Exact match typically converts the best, but can be the most expensive if we're in a category where our competitors are bidding a lot more on exact. Highly recommend running all 3. Later on, someone asks, can you put them all in the same campaign? You can. It's not necessarily going to hurt. We break ours up most of the time. There's instances where we won't, just so I can, control again where my budget's going. But we continue to test every single keyword and every single match type and then just negate and or pause or lower bids depending on the performance in the CPCs.
All right. I recently launched about 2 weeks ago. I'm running an automatic and manual campaign. Is there any other campaigns I should be running?
I'd say that's fine. Unless you have a really high budget, then look at maybe video or sponsored brands. Those are going to do really well for you. It's unique advertising inventory. But considering it's only been 2 weeks, I think an auto and a manual is good. An auto is going to be used for keyword research and data collection for you. Use your manual campaign to really control where your traffic's going, and then just continue adding those automatic keywords you're finding into your manual campaign.
Mike says, I'm in a category where there's a lot of window shopping, so my advertising spend is high as lots of clicks, no and low sales. Long tail keywords have low traffic, and the keywords with higher search volume are very general, expensive, and saturated by competitors. Any other strategies to consider?
Yeah, I would say like the home decor, apparel, puzzles, those categories can be really difficult because of the window shopping. So you got to think, how do you stop someone from window shopping? Video does really, really well because then you're educating them on why your product's better and why they're interested. And the good thing with Sponsor Brands video is if they're just watching the video, you don't get charged. You only get charged if they clicked. And if they click, they're interested. But again, I'd put this back on you to ask, why are people clicking on your listing but not buying? Like, even in high window shopping categories, you need to have a competitive advantage. The second thing I would say is product targeting. Sponsored product targeting, sponsored display product targeting can do really well. Target all of the competitors who have lower reviews than you, a higher price point than you, worse reviews than you. These do really well in window shopping categories because, as you mentioned, people are looking at competitors and then clicking on other listings and other listings. So this is a good opportunity to kind of take advantage of that mentality.
Yeah. Would you also say influencers are probably really the best way for those particular categories?
Yeah, I think influencers do really well because they're, again, it's the same as the video concept. You don't want to just capture the demand to be compared to every other product in your category by price or reviews, which is what Amazon's known for. How do you educate a customer on why they need your product before they even click? Influencers, video ads, off-platform traffic does that job.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Okay. Okay, yes, there's a lot more sponsored real estate. However, I struggle on converting on sponsored keywords and see a lot more success on sponsored brand video for the same keywords.
I would say that's more of a testament to your sponsored product keyword research maybe not being fantastic. If you're converting on the video, you probably should be converting on the sponsored product ads, unless you have a completely innovative brand new product that customers don't even know what it is. So the video is what brings them in. But I mean, the data is the data. So not here to argue that. I would try to make your sponsored products work though. Across the board, I've never seen a brand who has done better on sponsored brands video than sponsored products opportunity. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to lean into kind of what sponsored products could be better for you.
All right, Danielle's asking, what best practices for sellers would you recommend in how we utilize AMZ placement reports?
Yeah, great question. So this is actually an interesting one. Placement modifiers are at the campaign level or ad group level, which means if you have multiple keywords, 20 keywords in a campaign, and you put a placement modifier, you don't necessarily know when that place modifier is triggered across keywords. So I always say to be very careful with placement modifiers. We like to use placement modifiers in the placement reports for being very precise. So if I have a keyword I want to rank on, I'm typically going to focus on top of search traffic, and I'll create one campaign, one keyword focusing on top of search or rest of search, whatever is kind of the best. If the data is clear and you're performing so much better in one of these placements, then yeah, go for it. But just be a little bit careful because the bid management gets really tricky. If you're using a software and also allowing Amazon to increase your bids based off of placement, things get really messy really fast.
All right. If you have 3 similar products, is it best to create 3 unique listings or 3 variations of one listing from the perspective of driving PPC traffic?
Great question. If you go to the supplements category, you'll see Premier Nutrition and some of the other brands that have a lot of products try to create unique listings to win more market share, right? They want to show up in the first, second, third, fourth, fifth spot and just dominate a category. This is great if you have a lot of money, but it's really expensive because you're now having to pay to advertise each individual listing. So that's probably the biggest thing to consider. If you can afford to pay to drive traffic to each individual listing, go for it. The market share opportunity is incredible because now you're getting visibility to unique products. On the flip side, the variation strategy is probably the best overall because most customers know how to navigate variations. And then you can drive all of your traffic to one listing and still get the visibility to the other 2 listings.
Alrighty. The next one is, do you think Amazon rewards or gives more rank juice for organic sales more than PPC sales, or do they treat them the same?
I would probably say more to organic sales. This is why your big retail brands, your Johnson & Johnsons, your Pepsi, your Cokes can get away with having listings that maybe aren't as fantastic because their organic conversion rate's so much higher, right? Even before they were spending a ton, like 7 years ago when I got started in this space, those brands did so well because their conversion rate was higher. Customers were searching for their brand name and buying, right? So their organic is already inflated and doing much better. Nowadays, PPC, of course, plays a role, but Amazon knows that they're going to max out on how much PPC opportunity they can have within the search results. So I think organic is weighted a little bit heavier in terms of conversion rate and click-through rate.
Alrighty. Do you ever increase budget on a PPC campaign even if it isn't maxing out?
It doesn't hurt. I don't think it necessarily helps. It can. I've seen a few people kind of make statements like, I ran a campaign at $50 a day budget and it did nothing. When I increased it to $500 a day, it did something. I've never really seen that, but it doesn't hurt anything.
Ready? And Joshua says, wait, so I thought it was best practice to segment campaigns as in keywords and such to determine the performance. So is it best practice to clump keywords together for campaigns in groups of 10 to 15?
It doesn't really matter. Single keyword campaigns are okay. They don't hurt, but they're a pain to scale. Like we have brands that have, 500 keywords doing well. So I'm not going to create 500 campaigns when it doesn't drive that much added value. We do 10 to 15 because it's controllable. It's easy to scale. It's easy for us to build out. If in an absolutely perfect world, single keyword campaigns could be the best solution, the most value added, because you can do your placements at the same time, but they're not scalable for most people. Most people don't have the operations to run it appropriately. And the softwares out there that are recommending single keyword campaigns have a really terrible bid management strategy that doesn't make sense for them. So I would say if you're a small brand, only have one product, go ahead and run single keyword campaigns if you want. Just make sure you have a good system for naming and structuring.
All right. I'm going to do just a few more here. After a launch, when and how to start adjusting PPC campaigns? Should I be eliminating the automatic ones? I think you kind of already answered this a little bit, but
yeah, I would say it's make database decisions. Wait until you have data before optimizing and eliminating.
Alrighty. And then Andrew's asking, when should I consider pulling back on spend for a keyword? For example, we want to determine if pushing harder from an organic rank, a 4-to-1 would be worth it without spending a ton.
Ooh, great question. The without spending a ton is difficult. Like that's the best way we've tested it in the past. We got up to 1 and held 1 for the majority of the time because we did increase our spend investment and TACoS stayed the same. I don't think it's the same for all categories. I think it's more about being in row 1. I think row 1 is the most powerful place to be, and then optimizing, pulling back your spend from there, not necessarily being number 1, especially if you have a competitive advantage in the top 8. If you're lower priced, unique variation, we consider pulling back once we're in the top 8. That's kind of our biggest variable that we're going to start looking at. And then second is competitive advantage.
Alrighty. For sponsored ads, I've been running exact and phrase in the same ad. Is this okay to do and have separate campaigns for each and why?
We chatted about this one, so I think we're good here, but it's okay to run that way. You can segment for more control, but it won't hurt to run them.
Okay, I'm just looking through. Okay. Some of these are repeat questions too, so I'm just scanning through.
Andrew has a good one I can read because I don't know how far away it is, but he said, are there any sponsored product placements that are only used for automatic campaigns? I have seen that. The frequently bought together section is now sponsored. Lightning deals are occasionally sponsored, and we see those are typically driven from auto campaigns. I believe everything I've seen so far in off-platform placements are also auto. We almost always run auto and manual at the same time because of this.
Okay. This one says, is the cost of Amazon PPC 1 cent above the second highest bid, or am I charged the exact bid amount I set in the campaign if I'm the highest bidder?
1 cent above the second highest bid.
Okay. How can I make BOGO offers show on the sponsored ads instead of the PDP? Our price is technically higher than all of the brands in the category, and it makes our listings look less desirable.
I don't think you could do this on a sponsored product ad. You could do it in a sponsored brand headline ad with copy. I think this is a listing question, not an ad question, because there's no way to change it on the sponsored ad. It's just your sponsored ad just showcases whatever's on your listing. So I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't think you can do it there either.
Yeah.
What is a good, this isn't the one you answered. What is the good spend ratio? Or is this the one you answered?
No, it was different.
Okay, what is a good spend ratio between sponsored and sponsored brand?
Again, advertising inventory is the biggest variable here. Across the board, we typically see 70 to 80% of sales are sponsored products. 10 to 20% of sales are sponsored brands, depending on competitiveness of video. 5 to 10% display, sponsored display, or DSP. That's the typical ratio we see. It kind of depends on your product assortment, but that's usually best.
All right. This is a good question. If you're new to Helium-10 and Atomic, what's the best place to start? I feel overwhelmed by the complexity of the system.
I would start by saying that is the nature of Amazon and Amazon advertising in general. Like if you log into Ad Console, you're probably going to feel overwhelmed. So the biggest thing is to actually go through like the videos that are directly within Atomic. Like that's what I would say one of your best bets, and start learning each piece individually. That's something that I kind of got overwhelmed with. Like in the beginning, keyword research and bid management, that should be our core focus when it comes to advertising. So go through those segmented videos and help yourself understand the system that way. Do you have anything else, Carrie?
Yeah, I mean, we do have kind of a PPC academy. That's if you are a paid subscriber to Helium-10, you can go into that course. But Bradley also has done some, he did some master classes on Atomic, and then there's also kind of learn videos, like you were saying, just like watch those little videos for each different thing within the actual tools. There's kind of little training videos. I would suggest doing that. We also have it in our academy. We have videos in our academy that show you how to use Atomic.
In general, it just takes time, and to not get overwhelmed, you have to hop in and you have to test and learn. Like by the time you learn something, Amazon will change some button or some switch. So don't get overwhelmed by like, we have incredible comments and questions that are being asked that I would say are pretty advanced here. So like, don't get overwhelmed by all of that. Just start simple, start small, and you'll figure it out as you go.
Okay. I think we'll do maybe one more here. I think hopefully this is a good one. I use Cerebro to extract keywords from competitors' ASINs and then include those as exact and phrase match within the same campaign. As a result, my campaign sometimes ends up with 500 plus keywords. Is this approach okay, or should I create smaller, more segmented campaigns?
I'm going to assume what's happening with your 500 plus keywords is only 10 of them are actually getting impressions and clicks. That is the problem with that strategy. Unless you have $1,000 a day budget, you cannot afford the data across all those keywords. And what I mean by that is the industry standard is you need anywhere from 10 to 20 clicks per keyword before knowing whether or not it's a keyword that can be optimized, right? So let's say 10 clicks at a $1 bid across 500 keywords. I can't do that math. What is 500 times $10?
Like
5,000?
Yeah, 5,000. Yeah.
Wow, please, you guys, I just got
up the zeros
for Monday. Like, this is one of those memes of like, what is the most embarrassing thing you typed into your Amazon or your calculator this year? All of that to say, you cannot afford to collect data on all those keywords. You're going way too big, and you're going to have campaigns that only have 5 to 10 keywords getting clicks because that's where all of your budget's going. Your budget's only going to go to those keywords. Amazon's not going to spread it across all of your keywords. So there's no point in doing any of that keyword research when 480 of those keywords you cannot afford to get impressions on. That is why we break them out into segmented campaigns. So I can have a $10 campaign, focus on 1 to 2 keywords, collecting data. I can turn on and off as my keywords are successful. Versus your 500, again, you can't necessarily afford it unless you're going to be spending $5,000 to $10,000 to collect data on all of those terms.
All right. I think that's the last question. I think you've done an amazing job for pretty much 45 minutes straight answering questions. So thank you. And Andrew says, Destaney is the GOAT. And then Corey said, agreed. This is awesome. So thank you so much for joining us for TACoS Tuesday. And thank you to everyone in the audience. We had we still have questions we haven't answered. I'm sorry about that. We just don't have time to do all of them every single time. But if you join next time early, you can get your questions in early, right when we start, and get them answered. But thanks again for everyone who joined. And the recording, if you want to listen to it again, will be on the Serious Sellers podcast and our YouTube channel. So, and also, Destiny, if anyone wants to reach you, where can they reach you?
Facebook or LinkedIn is probably the easiest. I see a few good questions that came in last minute. Corey Benson, all of my content is pretty much on LinkedIn based around your question. So feel free to follow me on either of those platforms or reach out in the Helium 10 groups. I'm pretty active in those groups. So if you have any questions that we miss, we'd love to hop in and help.
Yeah, if you're not following Destaney on LinkedIn, you're missing out. So you got to go follow her there. So, all right. Thank you again. And we'll see you all again next time on TACoS Tuesday.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.